Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody, how are you on this Tuesday? Welcome aboard. Thanks a lot for being with us. We appreciate it, as always. Looking forward to getting into various topics on the day. The Pacers in action last night in Game 1, the second round of the NBA playoffs, the semifinals, the Eastern Conference Finals, as they take on – who in the heck were they playing? I was watching the game. Watched the whole game.
The Knicks.
Yes, the Knicks. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that one did not go as well for the Pacers. It went down to the wire, man. But they kind of got screwed over some bad calls at the end. Even the officials acknowledged afterwards that they may have screwed that one up. But we'll talk about that. Cliff Omori goes from Rutgers to Alabama. We'll talk potentially more on the NCAA possible settlement that will run into the billions. NBA Combine invites. Miami's Norchad Ormir, 6'7" power forward who basically by himself kind of wrecked Indiana's NCAA tournament hopes 2 years ago. Still in action and will be headed to play at Baylor next year. Baylor is loaded up, man. You want to talk about somebody that is reloaded. Baylor. Look out for them. He has averaged a double-double in 4 collegiate seasons. That's crazy. That is nuts. And the biggest news, Pat Knight expected to be named the new head coach at Marian University. I was talking to someone about that yesterday before that came out. And they said, hey, yeah, keep it hush-hush. They don't want to announce it until Friday. And then the next thing I know, it's everywhere. And I'm like, damn it. If nobody else is going to hold to that, why should we? But congratulations to Pat. And we'll look forward to having him on here probably Monday. We'll wait till they make the official announcement so as to not step on anybody's toes. How's everybody else doing all that on the Andy Moore Honda hotline? We appreciate that. Of course, Indiana Sports Beat Radio powered by Andy Moore Honda, where you can get the best in new and used vehicles at any time. And the Autograph app, where real fans get unreal rewards, the first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app in either the Apple app or Google Play Store today. Autograph, where unhinged fandom meets unreal rewards. Just go to the link.ag.fan/ISB media and sign up. And you can get all of your Indiana content in one place. And we'd appreciate that. It would help us out as well. How's everybody doing? Looking forward to talking to Mike DeCourcy today. Chronic Hoosier will be along. And maybe Michael Mango, if we can get the schedule right. He is our resident expert on NCAA legal affairs. And we'll talk more about this potential. Not only the payout, but collective bargaining type of thing, revenue sharing, all kinds of big time names that we're using to talk about that. In the Pacers last night, daggone it. It seemed like they had that game in hand. Of course, in a program, you never have anything in hand until it's over. but they led pretty much the whole way, and until some shaky calls at the end. I thought I was watching the women's national semifinals all over again. When it was UConn who got called for that illegal offensive screen, if you recall, back during the national semifinal game. It was just a call. You just don't make that call at that time of the game. And it happened again last night in the NBA of all places. And it was even less of it was even more of a call that you don't make. It's like, man, you got to be kidding me. So the Pacers kind of, I'm not going to say they screwed them. They got screwed out of it, but the calls did not go their way. It was not what the Pacers need. I cannot believe the officials did not let that game play out. It was a great game. It was crazy. As how good of a game it is. So hopefully we have the series is that good. But man, oh man, if the Pacers could have knocked that first game off, get that one in their pocket on game one on the road, whoo, man, that takes a lot of pressure off of you. But they'll have to do it again. So it's going to be this series is going to be a fist fight. Looks like lots of folks on the Andy Moore Honda Hotline. Las Vegas, Larry, Fred, Shenanigans, Donald down in Atlanta, Kent up in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Doug, how are you, sir? Let's see. Oh, I'm just reading some of those statements. The last call against Turner at the end of the game, horrible. Yeah, it was just the officials just really fumbled that. So we'll see about that. The Pacers needed a second quarter in the fourth quarter. There you go, Mike. He saw for a moment that they were going to pull it off. Yeah, looked like it. It sure looked like it. David, how are you doing from Dagonia Springs? Herbal says, don't get him started on that Pacers game. Justin, you are correct. It drives me nuts when you have such a great game and they don't let the game itself play out. And I'm not saying going out and killing people and not calling fouls, but man, give me a break. These were kind of ticky-tack. Herbal says the Knicks stole game 2 from Philly the same way. Adam, TJ McConnell is a gem stepping up for the Pacers. Yeah, he had a hell of a night, man. He was scoring. Boy, that dude is quick too. He is pushing the ball, causing heck for the Knicks. But they'll get more chances. It just stinks when you come out and you're that close and it's out of your hands by officials' calls. But I wonder if it changes the minds of anybody who is none of the people that we read yesterday had picked the Pacers to win this series. I was shocked. Brian says he thought that they were past the NBA only wanting big city teams advancing. Guess not. You know what? Great point. I don't think that there was any kind of edict from the NBA saying call it badly so that the Knicks win. But, oh no. I promise you the NBA and TNT or whomever would much rather see the Knicks at the next level, along with Boston, then you'd have a New York-Boston matchup as opposed to an Indiana matchup with either. That would be with Boston at the next level. Let's see. Dana says, Brian S., there's one Adam Silver doing his best Scrooge McDuck right now. Yeah, I think, I don't know what it is. It's not a purposeful thing. There's no way that the officials are thinking that in that minute, but it's just, why pick that time to screw up? It's crazy. And that offensive call, that one just, what was it? Stan Van Gundy, who was on the call, he was beside himself. He goes, you never see that called. He goes, nobody, you don't call that hardly ever, much less in the waning seconds of a playoff game. That's why I don't understand why now. Why at that juncture are you going to make that call? That weak ass call. And that's what it was, just a weak call. Cheryl says, hello, definitely some bad calls, especially in the fourth, but Miles and Ty have to play better, especially. Yeah, he wasn't there. 5 on board, the Andy Moore Honda hotline, as is Gritty. Oh, yeah, I'm not a believer in fixing games, but Rudy says he can't stand it when the media won't call out a rigged game. I'm calling out the fact that they got screwed, but I don't think that, man, people get screwed all the time. People, it's bad. I don't think that it's a rigged game. I'm sorry. I cannot imagine that there's an edict to the officials saying, hey, make sure if it's close, you call it New York's way. I'll never believe that. There are always bad calls. Sometimes they're in the beginning, sometimes they're at the end, but they sure screwed up. I'll tell you that. We'll talk to Mike DeCourcy about it. I'll tell him how pissed off you all are that they got screwed over. And I'm sure that he'll find a way to go with it. Hey, we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Appreciate everybody that's jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Richard, how are you doing, sir? Yes, I will be going to the Huber Winery in a couple of weeks, and thank you for reminding me of that, Richard. I appreciate it. The Hoosiers at Huber's returns for its annual gathering. It happens on Wednesday, May 29th. So we are 1, 2, 3.
Just over 2 weeks away, I believe.
No, 3 weeks. Just over 3 weeks.
Yes, you're right.
Away. Join Hoosiers Connect for an evening at Huber's Orchard Winery and Vineyard. This special event for the Southern Indiana and Louisville Hoosier communities will feature head football coach Kurt Signetti, head men's basketball coach Mike Woodson, and players from Indiana's men's and women's basketball and football programs. It also includes an autograph session afterwards. Proceeds from this year's event will benefit Indiana's NIL program. The cost to attend is only $50. It has not gone up in I don't know how long per individual, or you can just get an entire table for $1,250 to sponsor the table. Doors will open at 5:30 with the program starting at 6. You can register online at inforindiana.com. That is inforindiana.com. We've got more coming up, including Mike DeCourcy. Right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
feel like you can hear a pin drop right now. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, John. How you doing?
Doing good. We got about 40 seconds till we're back, so. Someone in our comments was, I'm going to pull it up. What do they say? Welcome to the pride of Pittsburgh and Point Park University, Mr. Mike DeCourcy, Hall of Famer.
Oh, there you go. Hello, Fred, wherever you are.
I was going to say, he's in Pennsylvania.
There you go.
He's in, hey, Mike. He's in, oh, daggone it. Where is
Here, we're coming back.
part of the Wild Food Group is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday. I appreciate you being with us here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table, of course, home of the Indiana men's and women's basketball coaches shows and the football coaches shows, as a matter of fact. Make sure you stop by Chop Shop. They're your market. They're your one-stop local meat shop, steakhouse, caterer, no matter where you live. Located right north of Bloomington Highway or Bloomington High School South on South Walnut. Welcome in, Mike DeCourcy. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Jim. How are you?
Cannot complain. There's plenty going on, plenty to talk about. The NBA combines are out. No Boo Booey, but we get a Brawny instead.
I don't think that is defensible on any level.
It bothers me. I think that I'm surprised that he even went to that lengths to do that, because this is going to be a mess to me.
Well, I don't. I'm not against Brawny going through the draft experience. I believe that every legitimate college basketball player should put their name in there at least once before they're seniors. So they have, it's like, I always compare it to a summer internship.
Right.
You find out what the real world is really like, Jim. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Great point. Great point.
To work in a newspaper office until I worked in a paper office. But you also should get what you earn. And Bronny James has not earned the opportunity to play in the full combine. Now, if they put him in the G League showcase, okay, whatever. And then if he'd earned it, if you go to the G League showcase and you ball out, they promote you to the full combine. If he'd done that, okay. I mean, he earned it. But there's no way he deserves a direct pass into the combine. He hasn't performed at the level necessary. He hasn't demonstrated any skill set that says this is an NBA ready player. He had 20 games, 25 games of college basketball. Now look, he had a major heart issue a year ago. And so I'm not blaming him for not being ready. But that doesn't mean you're ready. And I think that it's a bad look for the NBA to do this when there are athletes who have earned the chance to be seen on that stage.
Yeah, that's my question is, so how you decide who to cut that deserved, like someone like a Boo Booey, who we saw last year light up the Big Ten. And without question deserves the shot and has a legitimate chance of playing at that level.
He does. And I'm not saying that Bronny doesn't have a legitimate chance. I'm just saying he's not there now. Play another year of college and see where you are. If he had been healthy, maybe he goes out and he averages 20. I doubt it, but maybe. We can't say. It's one of those unknowables because he was ill last summer, seriously ill. And so we didn't get to see what he really is. But we were given no reason to believe, even by the end of the year, that he is NBA special. I mean, I think it disappoints me that that you get in these circumstances where you have players like Armando Bacot and Boo Booey, as you mentioned, and there were I saw 10 different people cited as why is he going instead of him? Let me read to you Bronny James's box score line from his last two, both in the Pac-12 tournament. So by now he's had as much of, he's had a full year to try, or a full season, I should say, to try to recover from his ailment. Okay. So he plays on Wednesday against Washington at the Pac-12 tournament. He plays 18 minutes. He gets off 2 shots, makes one of them, gets five free throws, makes them all, gets 5 rebounds. It's a fine day, but it's not an NBA day. And then he comes back the following night in a 70-49 loss to Arizona, gets 22 minutes against the Wildcats, goes 1 of 5 from the field, scores 3 points. The NBA looked at that and said, "Oh yeah, he's got to be in the combine." Yeah. Be serious. I mean, let's take this seriously.
Yeah, I agree. It's you're messing with guys living with their potential to make a living, where Bronny does not have that issue. And I understand wanting to do things for your child. I get that to a degree, but at the same time, to me, it is the ultimate disrespect to the game of which you have built your career on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Bronny even whether LeBron lifted a finger and made a phone call. But here's the thing: if you're the Cavs or you're the Lakers or whatever, you have to worry about how LeBron feels. You have to worry about that, because if you want to sign him, you have to worry about that. He's a free agent. But if you're the NBA, what's he going to do? You didn't take my kid, so I'm going to Spain. I mean, he's got no repercussion against you. He can't. There's nothing he can do. So you say, "Hey, LeBron, he didn't have a year. Call us next year." If indeed he made a call. I don't know that he even did. I think the NBA did it without having that happen. And again, they've made a mockery of their event by doing this.
Yeah, I agree. Then last night we had the NBA playoffs going on, and then
speaking of mockeries, an NBA referee doesn't know the difference between a hand and a foot. I mean, isn't that a disqualifier right there? You don't know the difference between a hand and a foot. How do you get a job at the NBA level if you can't tell a hand from a foot? I mean, that seems like a pretty low bar to cover. Don't know the difference between a hand and a foot.
Then right after that, you get the call that took me right back to the women's national semifinal game, in which I'm not saying that these were it was the same exact call, in which an offensive shield was called, illegal screen was called, of which I'm like, are you kidding me? Why are you calling that at this stage of the game? And the one in the NBA game was even less evident, if there was any evidence at all to it, that even happened. I was shocked. That would have been nothing. The only thing that would have surprised me more if they would have called traveling.
I got to be honest with you. I don't think those were comparable calls. The one in the women's game was a clear violation. I mean, it would have been at home in a college football game, and in that case, illegal because you're allowed to throw a block. You're encouraged to throw a block in a college football game. It was that physical, that out of line. Last night was. Could you call this within the letter of the law? Yeah, that's why the replay upheld it. But it was the most marginal moving screen I think I've ever seen in the NBA. And there was a play prior to that in which the Knicks screened one of, I can't remember which of the Pacers, and nothing was called. And there was much more physicality and much more movement. If this had been a makeup call, I kind of joked about it on Twitter last night. That directly followed, or soon followed the aberrant kickball call. It soon followed that, and if it had been a makeup call for a bad kickball call, then that would be one thing. But no, it compounded the bad kickball call. The Knicks fans are like, well, the Pacers should have held on to their lead, and I'm saying no. The Pacers are the Knicks are good. Nobody's saying they're not good, but they got huge help from the referees in this circumstance.
Yeah, and you expect and you hope that at this stage, at this level, that they are removed from that, and because you're expecting these games to be good, which there were. That was a hell of a game,
Yes.
a hell of an effort by the Pacers. Which, if they're able to pull that off, a game one upset on the road, man, that gives them some momentum. I'm not saying that they don't lose a game in Indianapolis later. But at that moment, that would have given them an unbelievable amount of momentum just to have won a road game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, the Pacers are not blameless in this. They should have gotten a fair whistle and then seen what happened. They may still have lost. Tyrese Halliburton's got to be better. I mean, you look at what he was selected for the Olympic team on the basis of a phenomenal regular season. He has not been phenomenal in the playoffs. He has deferred way too much in this playoff. The Pacers did not do a good enough job of emphasizing Pascal Siakam. He was dominating at certain circumstances in that game, and then they went away from it. I did not think that they are doing a good enough job of maximizing their primary players. They need more of Siakam, more of Halliburton. It's nice that they're getting such bench contributions, but they shouldn't be entirely reliant on it. Halliburton's got to be willing to take a shot. He's got to be willing to attack, and we did not see that. While Jalen Brunson is lighting them up for 40. What is Halliburton getting? Well, he barely took a shot in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he just kind of disappeared, and they've got to have their star right in the middle of the action. He has got to be either guiding it or being a part of it, and I don't know what happened to him, but hopefully the Pacers can swing back around and pick up the momentum where they left off, because you're going to have to win on the road to win this series.
No question. Even if you go 3-0 at home, you don't win on the road, you lose 4-3. So they've got to get one. It's often difficult to get that second one after you came so close in the first. We've seen that a lot of times where teams get so close to that, don't pull it off, and then wind up in difficult circumstance in game two.
I did not see, because I was down for the count, but who won the second game last night? The Nuggets?
Well, when I went to bed, Minnesota was up 30 at halftime. So I'm going to guess they held on. Yes, they did, 106-80.
And that amazes me that the Nuggets, who are so good, can get beat that badly in a game. But that happens all the time in the NBA playoffs. And Minnesota is for real.
Boy, I'll tell you what, Anthony Edwards, what a player. I mean, he is just phenomenal. Just it continues to grow in influence, in ability, just an amazingly dynamic shooting guard. He gives me real hope for American basketball. I've been, he chose to go to Georgia, and he had that humongous game against Michigan State in Maui. And that was really kind of the last we heard of him. I mean, he still played well after that, but he was on a poor team. And so he didn't really make much of an impact in college basketball. And so I don't think we really recognized how great he was going to be as a pro. But that, I guess we should have clipped off that Michigan State performance and remember that when everything else was coming, because he is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and speaking of LeBron, we were talking about earlier, another coach of his bites the dust that he played for. So does that affect his status? Is the amount of coaches that have bit the dust behind him?
I think it shows how great he is because he's played for so many bad coaches, or not bad, but not great. I mean, when has he get his Phil Jackson? I guess the fact that he played for Spoelstra, that was his Phil Jackson. He could have stayed there. He wanted to bring a championship to Cleveland. He wanted to move to LA because it's where he wants to live. Fine. But Spoelstra is the only highly competent coach, and Pat Riley is the only highly competent front office exec that LeBron's been able to work with in his career. When I wrote about LeBron a week ago, a lot of people said that I overlooked the fact that he left Cleveland for Miami and has kind of been a team hopper or whatever. And my response to that was, how long was he supposed to wait until Danny Ferry and then Chris Grant figured out how to be an NBA GM? I mean, they were not good at their jobs. They were not putting good teams around him. They didn't even seem to understand what he was. I'll never forget when the Cavs drafted I think they had the 19th pick, something like that. I don't remember what year it was, maybe 2008. And they picked J.J. Hickson, who was an undersized post player. And I'm like, what do they need him for? All he's going to do is get in LeBron's way. I mean, he doesn't stretch the floor. He doesn't, he's too small. And they picked him, and there was trying to remember his name now. I think his name was Ryan Anderson. He played for Cal, and he was a power forward who could shoot the lights out. And if you put him out there with LeBron, who could attack with anybody and then dish, maybe they get some buckets. And they passed on him, and they took J.J. Hickson. And I think if you look it up, J.J. Hickson scored about 1/8 the NBA career points that Ryan Anderson did. So great work. If I were LeBron, I'd have got the heck out of Cleveland too and gone to work for somebody who knew what they were doing down in Miami.
We've got Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network with us right now. We've got lots more coming up. When we come back, we'll talk about the potential NCAA settlement that will cost them about $2.7 billion or thereabouts. Mike's got that in his checking account right now. Let's see. Also, Pat Knight to be named head coach at Marion. So we'll talk about that as well. With Mike DeCourcy on the way back, we've got Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty. Of those of you in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore's 2-decade experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home,
how much trouble are you having with my internet?
I kind of noticed it was, so we hear you fine, but there is moments where it kind of fades in and out.
I'm going to try to do the second half of the spot on my cell phone hotspot, because new house, the internet's the main internet is like far removed. I'm not sure if the fact that my door is closed right now is problematic.
Got to get those boosters, baby.
I think I'm going to have to do something. So let me do that and see what happens.
Well, I have those, and they're lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is all new, so let me
I get it.
Give this a shot and see if this works. I'm going to drop right off real quick.
Sounds good. Someone said blame it on one of the 5 Google farms. I don't know what that means, but it's kind of funny.
That's it right there, baby. These things, this is the greatest.
the greatest. Are y'all supposed to get bad storms in the next couple of days? We are down here.
Well, I saw that last night, and I'm like, I don't know.
We haven't had truly terrible storm. Actually, that's not. We've had some bad ones the past couple of years, but we haven't had like a tornado come through in a while. I feel like not that we're expecting one, but you never know. Brian says internet is slow because Google is eating up the bandwidth data mining us. Huh.
He means that they're following you. Big Brother is watching.
Oh yeah, Google is the outside of the government. Google is the next biggest thing watching you.
You sure it's not Facebook?
They're both pretty high up there on the list. I'd say Google's probably more apt to collect your data than Facebook is. All right, 15 seconds. Hopefully Mike will be back on shortly.
90 days or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, brought to you by Freethink Apparel and Promotions. Whether you need 24 t-shirts for your upcoming family reunion or 200 for this season's recreational softball league, Freethink Apparel meets your printing needs. Their team of industry experts work with you to design a professional-looking, sales-generating web store for your custom-designed apparel or promotional merchandise. From large corporations to small businesses, high schools, sports teams, to national accounts, Freethink Apparel delivers no matter where you are. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Welcome back, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network. And Mike, a couple of tidbits. Pat Knight to be named the new head coach at Marian University. Someplace his father had an affinity for. It was Steve Downing, I think. I don't know if he's still there or not. But that caught me a little bit of surprise when I heard that yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't. I had no awareness of that coming either. I had lost track of Pat. I didn't realize he'd been working for the Pacers as a scout. Very happy for him that he'll get the chance to coach at that level. I come to school at a similar level, so have a real affinity for that level of college athletics, and hope he enjoys it. Hope he does well and enjoys the experience.
Yeah, I would think though, once you get out of coaching, man, you kind of step away from that because it's a grind. It's a meat grinder. But he's been living out in Las Vegas while his tenure for the Pacers. So I don't know if that was an impetus for him to take this job when it became open, or what all that went into that. But hopefully we'll have him on the program next week. Like I said, we're trying to get that set up already. But it makes you wonder why he made that change. But people make changes all the time. And so going into coaching is just not something that I think I would want to do right now. And this, especially in this day and age at schools his size, I don't know how much the new rules are going to affect him, but generally they're going to lose more than they gain via the portal.
They don't always lose more than they gain, Jim. It's just a question of where you're finding players. There's the presumption that the door only goes one way, but it's really a revolving door. If higher programs are taking your players, then you can take players from lower programs or programs at your level. That's the fallacy of the transfer portal, is that everybody's only moving up because that's what we see. but it's not the reality. They also are moving down, or they are moving up from lower level to your level. We saw that with Kentucky wishes it didn't happen because Jack Golke, the shooting guard who shot Kentucky out of the 2024 NCAA tournament, came from Division II. He played 4 years at Division II and had a year of eligibility to spend, and so he spent it.
Steph Curry Goki. I'll never get that name out of my head. That was from that site that I forget. I guess it was from Awful Announcing, but just hilarious. The guy that does a great imitation of who was the comedian, Sam Kinison. You probably didn't see these. There's a guy that he sounds like Sam Kinison. He's screaming and yelling about the coaches and how they didn't do this or that. But I'll never be able to get the name Steph Curry Goki out of my mind because that's what he kept screaming during this video. But so there's that. And we'll see how, hopefully good luck for Pat, that it works out very, very well. In addition to that, the NCAA is close. We've seen this for a week now to reaching a settlement in which they're going to pay out close to $3 billion, which how do you have $3 billion lying around, first of all, to be able to do that? Now, I know this, they're not paying that all at one time, so I'm kind of kidding, but to be able to come up with that quickly, but yet they fought it for so long, it's amazing that they're able to come to a realization so fast. And of course, that is going to go to the players. Revenue sharing, in essence, is what it would. The settlement would come with a corresponding commitment from conferences and schools to share revenue with the athletes moving forward. The settlement would establish a framework for power conferences to share revenue with their athletes in the future. Sources, this came from ESPN. The schools are anticipating a ceiling of nearly $20 million per year for athlete revenue share moving forward. That's a lot of money to split out. I'd like to get in that pool.
Well, I will tell you this, Jim. I saw that figure and I'm like, that's not enough. There's no way that's going to be enough. You've got athletes in football, men's basketball, women's basketball, wrestling at certain schools, ice hockey at certain schools, baseball at southern schools like in the SEC that are all revenue generating. That there's no way $20 million is going to be enough. And that's why when I see the constant flow of negativity about the state of college athletics as it is now. I wrote a column that appeared yesterday telling everybody to just lighten up, basically. That one, it's not as bad as you think it is. And two, you better get used to this because it's not changing for a while. It will change. I don't have any doubt that at some point the athletes will be some sort of employee. I don't think there's any way around that with the NLRB ruling on Dartmouth. I just think it's inevitable, but I don't think it's inevitable tomorrow. It's too hard to work out. Think about it this way, Jim. Okay, so let's just say tomorrow, which again, it's not going to happen, but let's just say tomorrow, everybody in college athletics agreed that the athletes would be employees. Okay, first of all the athletes, all the levels, like who is in and who is out? Do you opt in or opt out? Or do you not have the option to opt out? If Dartmouth basketball players are employees, drawing 670 fans a game at home, then everybody's an employee. I mean, there are little league teams that are employees at that level. I mean, that's just such a meager level. That's why I found that ruling kind of hilarious. Because, like, if you're drawing 670 fans and you're an employee, then there's not very many who aren't. But let's just say everybody decides that the athletes are employees. Okay, so then you have to establish collective bargaining agreements. Well, first, in order to establish a collective bargaining agreement, you have to have bargaining units. And that's not going to be easy. Like, everybody's not going to go to Mike DeCourcy's sports union and sign up. They're going to say, wait a second, what's best for us? Like, okay, so they're trying to organize us with the football players. Well, we don't want to do that because the football players are going to get everything and we're not getting anything. So then there's going to be a union for football and one for basketball, and one for women's basketball, and one for Olympic sports or more. Like it. So all of this is going to take years to change. So if you have a problem with how college athletics are now, you've got years to wait before it changes. And you may not like what it changes into, but the idea that the transfer portal, immediate eligibility, and all that's going away tomorrow, it's not. There is no action short of congressional action that can make that go away, and Congress has shown no appetite to give the NCAA, those NCAA members who are arguing for greater control of the athlete. There's been no appetite demonstrated for that. So that's why I think that college athletics has been its own worst enemy for 20 years, 30 years, almost pretty much my entire time in this business. They've never done the smart thing, the right thing. And when faced with a set of circumstances that is more challenging, more difficult to manage and more tumultuous, but instead of saying, hey, we still got 10 million people a game watching the NCAA tournament. We still got full houses at Duke and Kansas and Wisconsin and Michigan State and all these other places, Indiana, Purdue. It's just of focusing on the positive. College basketball principles relentlessly focus on the negative. It's been that way for as long as I've been in sports. And I was on Twitter yesterday arguing with a bunch of people about this. It's never been this, people have never been this upset before. The heck they haven't. I've been there. I've been in this arena for 30 years at the Sporting News and beyond that at the various newspapers where I work. And especially during those 30 years at the Sporting News, people have complained about what college basketball is or is doing for that entire period. And when I say people, I'm not just talking about people on Twitter. I'm talking about the people working inside, coaches, administrators, complaining. Oh, the recruiting has gotten out of control, and the AAUs are running everything in the shoe companies. Remember that? How long ago was that?
Yep. What about athletics like rowing and all these other things where these athletes are not in revenue generating sports, but they're going to, hey, where's mine? Why am I not getting paid? Well, I mean, I know the real reason, but is that going to be acceptable to them? Or like so many other things, is the minority going to get what they want?
Well, I think that I think first of all, that because of Title IX, sports like rowing, women's volleyball, which has a fairly large squad size, obviously women's soccer, those are very important sports to the major universities because you have to have some degree of gender balance, some degree of it. It doesn't always have to be 50-50, but there has to be an effort made. If you read Title IX, there are 3 prongs that you could satisfy in order to be in compliance. But cutting rowing and cutting women's soccer isn't going to get you there. You have to be active in those areas to have a chance to be in compliance. So I do think that there are going to be sports where if the schools, if the athletes become employees of the schools, well, you're going to have a great number of female athletes that are employees also. So you can't cut their sports. And not only can you not cut their sports, you're going to have to pay the athletes something. So this is part of why I say it's so complicated, and it's not going to be fixed tomorrow. And it's probably going to be fixed. I would say that we won't see a full operational employer-employee union/CBA circumstance in the next 5 years.
What about?
I don't think we'll see that. Even if that suit that the ESPN reported about, even if that suit is settled tomorrow.
What about contracts and the ability to hold school players in place for a year or for a couple of years, as opposed to right now the ability to just go to 4 different schools in 4 years?
Again, that comes back to the designation of employee or employee. You can't. How can you ask somebody to sign a contract if you're not compensating them? I don't see how that's possible for the athlete to be signing a contract unless he or she is designated as an employee of the university or of the university's athletic department. Because remember, at a lot of the schools, it's like a separate association that is school affiliated, but the business structure is the athletic association. Florida, I think, does it like that. Where the business is defined as being separate from the university. There's a lot of schools that do that. So whatever you're an employee of, how can you force one to sign a contract or demand that one sign a contract if you're not going to offer anything in return? So I don't see that happening. And again, until there's some employer-employee designation, I just don't think that's possible. I suppose you could ask anybody to sign anything. But the incentive would be if I'm State U and you're State Tech, and you're saying you got to sign with me that you're going to stay at least 2 years, and I'm State U and say, nah, come over here. I won't make you sign anything like that. You know, we'll take care of you and we'll be good. And if you don't like it here or you think you can do better elsewhere, we'll say thanks very much for stopping by. Then that person, entity has all the recruiting advantage. So no one's ever going to put themselves in the circumstance where they demand that 2 year.
Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network. Appreciate you, my friend. Make sure you go to the Sporting News and check out his latest content as always. Mike, I appreciate you, sir.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Betcha. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Free Think Apparel and Promotions. Whether you need 24 t-shirts for the upcoming family reunion or 200 for this season's recreational softball league, go to freethinkapparel.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for a man, that drove me insane.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, new house and all that kind of stuff, but he hadn't had issues before, so. All right. Here we go.
Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Ravesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you, as always. Mike DeCourcy, we just finished up with him. Chronic Hoosier will join us later. Don't forget the Indiana Greater Evansville Association, Alumni Association, rather, having their annual golf scramble at Sultan's Run on Monday, May the 20th. All proceeds benefit local students through their Greater Evansville Alumni Chapter scholarship of the Indiana University Alumni Association. That, again, is May 20th. It will happen from 8 a.m. to noon. Just go to myiu.org/events/Evansville Golf 24, as you can see on your screen as well if you're watching. But you can also contact Kyle King at kywking@indiana.edu or give him a call, 812-677-1119. You want to talk about an absolutely gorgeous course. Sultan's Run is just that down in Jasper, Indiana. It is it's a beautiful course. And but don't get fooled by its beauty. It'll eat you up like a monster. Hope everybody's having a good start to your week. This weekend in AAU action, the Adidas May Classic is going on in Indianapolis. There will be a ton of teams there, but Indiana Elite is included in that. They will be playing on Saturday, and Saturday only, because they are preparing the following week to go down to Bryan, Texas to play. And I'm going to assume they're going to have a number of games down there like they did over this past weekend when they were in Birmingham with they played 5 games in Birmingham. But man, the trio of Braylon Mullins, Trent Sisley, and Malachi Moreno have just been tearing it up and altering who is, I don't want to call it the star, but who's leading the way. You had all three of those guys were leading scorers at one time or another in games over this past weekend. It was a great outing for Indiana Elite as they went 5-0 and are now 12-0 in Adidas 3SSB play. Trying to pull that up right now. There we go. Braylon Mullins is averaging 20 points per game through pool play. That's pretty good, especially when you're surrounded by the kind of talent he is surrounded by. But Malachi Moreno finished it off in their last game with a 30-10 effort. But last Friday they played 2 games. Last Saturday they played 2 games, and then they played again on Sunday. But Braylon Mullins led all scorers with 28 points. He shot 60% from behind the 3-point line, people. 6 of 10. He put up 10 shots and hit 6 of them. You're on a roll when you're doing that. But Trent Sisley also a great shooting day, 10 of 14 from the field, 22 points. He was 2 of 5 behind the 3-point line, and then Malachi Moreno added a double-double with 12 and 14. And then in the next game, Braylon Mullins leading scorer again with 19 points. Malachi Moreno with 16, and then Trent Sisley had 14. Malachi with a lot of blocks as well. In addition to assists, because he's able to pass out. So he's becoming a good passer in his early career as well. There was a low-scoring game. It's kind of ironic. The lowest scoring game I have seen them play was their last game on Saturday, in which they defeated Game Point 50-22. They hold a team to 22 points for the game. Obviously, the scoring on even on the elite side was not much, but Braylon Mullins had 23 of the 50 points. Malachi Moreno was 8 and 5 with 3 blocks. Trent Sisley, 9 points, just missed hitting double figures. That's the only time that Moreno and Sisley did not score in double figures. They missed it by a combined 3 points. But then they wrap it up with the finale on Sunday, and Malachi Moreno went nuts with 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks, and 4 assists. The big 7-footer. Again, that's 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks, and 4 assists. Braylon Mullins was 17, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Trent Sisley had a double-double with 14 and 13. I mean, that is a great trio because they all three play completely different positions. You've got Braylon Mullins as a shooting guard, and he is a shooter. You've got Trent Sisley, who is a unbelievable utility man. He can bring the ball up. He can shoot from outside. He can play on the wing. He can go into the paint and battle and rebound and score inside. And then you've got Malachi Moreno, who is blocking shots, grabbing rebounds, scoring points, and he can shoot. He's working on his 3-point shot, and it looks pretty decent. He's going to be a really, really good all-around player by the time he gets through with everything. But and then you've got other programs that are going well. Jalen Harrison in action as well. But go to thehoosier.com to keep up with all that. And we'll keep you updated on what all's going on. Let's see. I'm trying to read some of the comments. Not seeing anything of note. Chronic Hoosier coming up later. Make sure I don't miss anything. I mentioned earlier Cliff Amore that went from Rutgers to Alabama. Man, I'm trying to. I know that Kansas is getting a lot of love as far as having really rebuilt things, but let me tell you, Baylor is right on their butt as far as adding some really, really top pieces and getting back. It cracks me up because there was so much talk about people trying to get Scott Drew out of Texas. And I'm like, man, he's already, look what he's got right now. He's got a championship contender again. So next season will be interesting, but look for Kansas, look for Baylor, look for Alabama to be back. This will anger the Purdue fans, but one team that will not be back in that element is Purdue. And I'm not cracking on Purdue, but they won't be back because this style of building up your own, it's just not going to work anymore. You have to have elite. And, if there's no way I can say this without it angering Purdue fans, because as a fan, you take things personal, but take off Zach Edey from that team last year and take anybody you want. Anybody, any player in college basketball. Are they able to do what they did with Zach Edey? My opinion is no. And I don't care who you put in his spot. I don't care if it's Cliff Amore from Rutgers. I don't care if it's Donovan Clingan from UConn. They are not in that same position. And so the drop is going to be a little farther than they think. They were not getting nearly as much from their supporting cast as they think that they were, that it was made a lot easier because of what was in the middle. But we shall see. Like I said, the Big Ten is going to be very interesting next year. Indiana, we know what they have as far as talent, but having talent does not always equate to wins. You've got to have everything in place. Who's going to be the team in the Big Ten next year? I don't know. Brad Underwood has done a great job at Illinois of always rebranding his team. Tom Izzo usually does a good job as well. Rutgers is on the rise. They have a great recruiting class, but you lose somebody like Cliff Amore, and that kind of negates a little bit of that. So right now, if you were just looking at it from a talent standpoint, maybe it is Indiana that's standing out. I'm not going to go out on that limb right now. It's way, way too early. But it's certainly going to be interesting to see, because there is going to at least be an equalizer. You don't have this standalone character in Zach Edey that is just changes things around. So who's Hoosier Homer? Reading one of the comments. I know he's not talking about me. Let's see.
Hey, real quick, hasn't there been some movement with Langdon Hatton, the transfer from Bellarmine? I heard he was leaning towards Indiana from some sites yesterday.
Well, we'll see when it happens. It hasn't happened yet, and until it does, I am staying away from that. But I think wouldn't that be an absolute turnaround? This is a guy who I think is from Georgetown originally. How he did not end up at Floyd Central High School, I don't know, but he certainly did not. Ended up going to North Harrison, but I'm pretty positive North Harrison High School has never had a guy play at Indiana. But that would be pretty cool. But that's also a way to fill that final spot. It looked like
still are two spots, right? Unless I missed something.
Well, okay. I meant fill the final big man spot.
Oh, okay.
There's no question that there has to be a big man in one of those positions. They've got to have a backup. There just has to be. And it's awesome to see people. That's another thing about the portal. It does give opportunities to people who would normally not have them. This guy would never have had a shot to play at Indiana. And I'm not saying he's going to, but he has a shot. But that would have normally never, ever happened. So good for those guys. And I'll be glad when it's all done. I'm so tired of it, of dealing with the chasing and all of that stuff. But hey, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Chronic Hoosier will join us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. If you're already in the area or will be, the Ugly Grouper down on Anna Maria Island, Florida is the place to be. If you're they've got much more going on than just great meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers, cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them we sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. We're back for more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly.
Good morning, Chronic.
Good morning, gentlemen.
When's the rain coming?
1 hour.
Really?
45 minutes, 45 to 60 minutes is going to be our first. I'm literally just opening it up right now.
The first wave?
Yeah. This is the opening entree, and then it looks like sometime around dinner time is when it gets really bumpy.
Oh, yeah. Open.
Got my son trying to go down to the lake today to do some catfishing, and I'm having to break the news. That's probably a terrible idea today.
It probably ain't going to happen. Oh, boy.
Yeah. School off for the primaries today, so they're biting at the bit to go do something fun, and this is probably going to be a bad day for that.
Oh, boy, there's one that's supposed to hit right at 3 o'clock, like you said. Put us right in crosshairs. Little bitty one right in the crosshairs. Oh, then there's another one coming. Oh, that's the same one.
It looks like you're going to get it before we do. There's some stuff just about over top of Crane right now that's heading your way.
Wow, it's wild.
But our hills are doing the job. They're breaking it up.
That's right,
high
baby.
pressure.
All right, here we go, guys.
And selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. And it looks like it's going to be a rainy one, so make sure you're taking cover. Chronic Hoosier joins us now, and lots of things happening. Pat Knight expected to be named the new coach at Marion. That probably won't happen until later this week, but the news has leaked out. And good for him coming back home. He's been living out in Las Vegas for the last few years, but obviously he was looking forward for a reason to get back, and he will be, although he's going to be up north of Indy a little bit.
Yeah, school near and dear to his family's heart. Coach Knight long supported Marion's efforts, even up until his final acts, where he asked that in lieu of flowers, send donations to Marion University.
Yeah, Steve Downing still there?
Yes, he is. He is.
Big. It's amazing. I mean, my God, Steve Downing played for Knight back in 72, 3, something like that.
Yeah, one of his first teams.
Yeah, been around as the athletics director at Marion, and so congratulations to Pat. We look forward to talking to him about. I didn't think he would get back into coaching. That's just such a grind. Of course, I don't know how much of a grind scouting is. That could be just the same and just different, but which is what he has been doing for the Pacers for some time. But or maybe it was just an opportunity to get to move back to Indiana. I'm not sure. And well, I'll ask him whenever I get to talk to him. But boy, that coaching thing, especially I was talking earlier in this day and age, it has not gotten easier.
No, it hasn't. But I it's funny. I just had my parents over for dinner Sunday, and as my kids are going through all the trials and tribulations of their teenage years and college selection and all that stuff, pop culture, that's the one constant throughout all of it is we always think the kids are just different than what we knew, what we thought of, and they are. It's not anything other than we no longer connect with them as we get older, and I think that's been the one constant throughout history. But the benefit for Pat, Marion, probably a little different waters than what you see at the Power 5 level, as far as some of the nuances and the intricacies, whether it be NIL, portal, things of that nature. And don't get me wrong, it's certainly something that every team struggles with. There's always going to be the risk in today's day and age that you identify, develop, grow talent, and the talent outgrows your pond and it moves on to a bigger one. And it's certainly a challenge that every team, Duke included, now has to deal with. But it's probably a little bit easier at the lower division levels. Not to say that you're not going to still lose your guys whenever more attractive suitors come calling, but at least you're not necessarily swimming in the myriad of issues now that plague college basketball. So we'll see. I'd be curious to see what Pat's motivation was when he comes on, but I imagine it's a little bit different gig than signing up for P5 or at least major Division I at this point.
Absolutely, and it continues to add to the mystique of I'm missing a school off the top of my head, but when you think about the Division I schools in Indiana, you've got Notre Dame and Valpo, Purdue, Indiana University at Indianapolis,
University of Indianapolis.
State. Yeah, or that's
separate.
That's
And Columbus is getting
all confused. ISU, Indiana State, Butler, Evansville, and most of these schools, Notre Dame's head coach Micah Shrewsbury from Indiana. Valpo, their head coach is not from Indiana, but AJ Moye, assistant is. Purdue's coaches from Indiana. Indiana's coaches from Indiana. Butler is not from Indiana, but he's quasi an Indianapolis resident, has been for a long time. And it's just nuts how so many of those coaches are from within the state.
Dusty May just had a great article. He said, "You want to get a job in basketball, be a manager at Indiana University." It's it's quite a massive and well-connected fraternity for sure.
And that, just look at all those guys within the state that are recruiting the talent that comes out of this state. Now you add into that, Tom Izzo's been doing it for a long time. Fran McCaffrey's been doing it for a long time. Dusty May is going to be doing it, already is trying to do it. So there's going to be a talent drain that continues to happen here in this state. You've got to get the good ones when you can get them.
No doubt, but I've been saying for decades now, there's a reason for that, and it's the abundance of great coaches at every level of the game, starting from biddy ball all the way up. Indiana grows great basketball players because Indiana has great basketball coaches, and of all the traditions and legacies, I think that's perhaps the strongest and the most important. Because without those coaches, you don't get that talent. It just doesn't happen. And like I said, it starts from the beginning and it goes all the way up. The maturation of basketball players in Indiana is as phenomenal as it is directly related to the quality of the coaching and the instruction that they receive at pretty much every step of the game. I still remember I took my son to Twin Lakes for his first basketball experience. And man, you want to get humbled real quick. You think you spent some time with your kid in the driveway, getting some shots up, working on the handles, and then you go out there and there's a kid that's doesn't even come up to your belt, and he's just ripping threes like he was born to do it. And you're just like, son, sorry about them jeans. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah. Earlier, I was talking about the outlook for the Big Ten in basketball next season, and I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I have, I'm going to say I have no idea, but I have little idea at the moment because I don't know what Illinois is going to end up looking like, or Ohio State, or Michigan State for that matter. Indiana looking strong, obviously, with the talent. They obviously have the talent to be right at the top. But it's going to be different, and I think it's going to be a lot more fun of a season because we are not going to have this outlier of Zach Edey in the conference, and that is going to be the great equalizer. And I'm looking forward to a hell of a fun season next year in the Big Ten.
No, I think it's going to be wild. And, I think it's probably this is going to give us a good taste, at least for the time being, of the new flavor of college basketball, because you look across the league and you're seeing teams basically getting completely remade through the portal. And it's a wild time. And I think it's going to put a premium on we talk about all these intrinsic qualities of coaches, but the ability to meld a team, to get guys to buy into the team concept, to get, dudes that have, maybe it's their last stop in their career. Maybe they're coming in, as a late addition, as a true freshman, and everything in between, but with different wants and needs from that experience, and get them pulling in the same direction. It's going to put a premium on coaches' ability to pull things together and get guys to gel. And I think that starts with the recruitment, with the targeting, with the offering, but at every step along the way, you've got to take a large group of guys who are largely unfamiliar with one another, and get them on the same page and pulling in the same direction in a relatively quick fashion. I think we talk about some of the things that are always the same with kids. Kids are always going to have different motivations. That's nothing new. But with the ability for kids to move around as freely as they now can, whether it's just getting a couple extra minutes, trying to, get more playing time, whether it's making the leap to the next step, whether it's just coming and getting a great free education and everything in between. You've got a lot of guys with disparate interests that now have to find a way to cohese. And that's no small feat. You look at the another thing we've been saying for years, look at the Kentuckys of the world, or at least the Calipari Kentuckys. You can have the greatest assemblage of talent year after year after year, but if you can't get them working in the same direction, you're just not going to get the results that you want. So I think talent acquisition is always going to be paramount, but I think hand in hand with that now, the ability of coaches to develop cohesiveness of the team, to get guys to accept and embrace their roles within the team, I think is going to end up being everything, because it's wild how many new faces are coming into this league right now. Look no further than Indiana, Ohio State, and Michigan, and teams that I think by a lot of accounts underperformed this season, or at least by what the fans had expected them to, or the media had expected them to. Doesn't matter how short you fell last year, you can completely erase that and then some with the portal additions right now. So it's going to be fascinating to see how the league shakes out. But like you mentioned, you take away that 7'4" behemoth, and the playing field certainly got a lot more leveled than what it was this time last year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, just because I think it's going to be that much more fun. I think it's going to be that much more entertaining. And one thing that stands out to me is the fact that it appears that Mike Woodson and his staff seem to have heard the noise in regards to in-state recruiting and have altered things now. And I think that Matt Painter is also going to have to accept the fact that you can't go completely that way either. It's like both of those guys have gone in all in one direction. Woodson was trying to get the best talent he could get outside or wherever, and Painter has done the opposite. Well, now they're both going to have to adjust somewhat. Matt Painter's going to have to adjust a little bit to the transfer portal. You cannot bring in 6 freshmen, I don't think, anymore, and have half of your team be underclassmen, in the following season. While at the same time, you cannot continue to ignore or not have the best talent of in-state guys, which India, obviously Woodson is working on getting the guys from the 25 class now and all of that, but it will have taken 4 years for that to really happen. But we're seeing a convergence of at least one side of that.
Yeah, and there are landmines being laid for future seasons right now as you try to patch up your roster and put the pieces in place to be competitive this season. Look at Indiana. You've got 4 guys who are set to lose eligibility at the end of the season. Malik Renew will then be your lone senior, assuming that he comes back. The junior class, while you're going to have, currently 4 of the 7 scholarships that are currently enrolled at IU, 4 of those 7 are going to be juniors next year, but only 2 of which have been here, from the jump in Cups and Baco. So the continuity is going to be something that's really, one of those interesting factors from season to season. How do you maintain an identity when you're constantly replacing so many bodies? The leadership vacuums that get created there. And, I think and Woodson loves to do this. I think a lot of fans love to do this, assume just because you're an upperclassman, therefore you are a leader. That's not always the case. Not every guy is built for that role. That's just not how their personalities are constructed. So a ton of challenges await for that, because you've got to find guys that can step in and assume that leadership role. And I think that was one of the things that was really, really lacking with Indiana, especially at the start of this season. Who was out there really taking command of the floor in between the whistles? And the absence of that leadership was kind of glaring at times. And I think, credit to Trey Galloway for really stepping up in the second half of the season. Credit to Anthony Leal for coming off the bench and taking, assuming some of that role. And I fully expect those guys to be front and center and guiding this team this year. But you get to go ahead and repeat the process again every season now with so much fluidity in the roster. That's going to be one of the challenges that I think is going to be very difficult to manage. I think you go back to Tom Crean and look at where things didn't go well, and that was probably one of the biggest reasons. Is you have a class that's got a ton of great leaders, ton of natural leaders, a ton of guys that have matriculated through the program from the beginning of their careers, and then in that void, it's tough. Look no further than Yogi Ferrell's sophomore and junior year, and how Indiana got a little bit adrift during that time, and how they were able to get things back together once he'd become a senior and matured and really grown into that role. And then the vacuums created again, and so on. So I think that's going to be one of those things that you have to keep an eye on as you look at how these rosters are being constructed, not just for the immediate season, but how does that lay the groundwork to follow? And then, all the best laid plans can completely go out the window if somebody decides there's maybe greener pastures somewhere else. So I think it's going to be a wild and fascinating time to see how coaches across the league, but especially locally, manage all those new forces at play.
Yeah, I've been talking about the potential NCAA settlement revenue that will include revenue sharing and many other aspects of it, some of which we don't know. One thing I am hoping that it does bring is the ability to sign a guy for a couple of years. And I don't care what school we're talking about. I'd love to see more consistency as far as people staying with a team instead of having the ability to go to 4 different schools in 4 years. Nobody has that kind of freedom. Not in the sports world, not even professionals. So I don't think that should be the case here, but I could be in the minority on that. But I would like to see more continuity amongst teams.
I think that's one of the benefits to taking the next step and labeling them as employees, is the ability to introduce employment contracts, which can define the terms and the limitations, the rights and the responsibilities, and whether that involves a minimum time commitment or not. Curious to see, and as some of these things become, as the labor organizes and things are bargained for collectively, if that's not something that the schools push for. At the NCAA level is, at least a minimum of a 2-year commitment, or else you have to sit. And that's, one of the restrictive things that the courts have really been quick to strike down because it's being unilaterally imposed. I think that opens the door once you allow them to be classified as employees and you allow them the ability to bargain. I think then maybe you bring back a little bit more balance, because while I am unabashedly all for the freedom of the players to profit, the freedom of the players to move, also recognizing some of the challenges it poses to the programs, as far as how do you construct a roster, how do you put a product on the floor that's worth the price of admission, that keeps people coming back. And at the end of the day, if they are employees, then we need to acknowledge this is entertainment, and it's teams like to have some continuity in their teams. Fans like to have some continuity in their teams. And it's one of those things that's certainly been put in jeopardy with this current situation because, guys are no longer loyal to the school. They're loyal to, whatever it is that's motivating them to move. And I think that certainly risks, disassociating some fans with the sport. When your favorite player is not here for more than a year, you never get a chance to know these guys. And, I think somewhere in between, there's a balance that can be struck that works in everybody's interests. That's not, too unduly prohibitive, but also just provides a little bit of sanity, a little bit of reasonableness to how these things are going to be structured going forward.
Sanity, reasonableness. What are these words you speak of, Chronic?
These are supposed to be Hoosier values, man. As I'm reminded here, as we're heading to the polls for primary day today. I've always thought, one of the greatest things people talk about Hoosier hospitality. I think Hoosier sensibility, kind of that Midwest sensibility, was something that Indiana had previously always kind of excelled at, and we've certainly gotten away from that a bit here. But I think that's something that most Hoosiers can recognize. It's that reasonableness. And I think reasonably there's a path forward that allows players to exercise the rights to enjoy the freedoms, while also giving schools a little bit of foreseeability. And I think folks forget it's one of the primary reasons that we contract, and that we have an underlying principle in contract law that you are free to contract for whatever you want, assuming it's fairly bargained for. That being said, though, the foreseeability, the predictability, the way that allows you to operate with kind of some guidelines on how things are going to happen, I think that's something that players and teams alike are going to find there's some common ground there, mutual interest, and see if they can't find a reasonable compromise as far as how that looks going forward. Because at the end of the day, too, from a player standpoint, it's going to be really tough to flourish if you're constantly changing your development team year after year after year after year. You see it all the time at the high school level when these kids make the jump to a prep school for their junior or their senior year. They had a career arc that we followed since they were in middle school or even earlier, and then all of a sudden it just goes completely off the rails. Part of it, I think, is perhaps motivation, but I think part of it is you take away the familiarity of the environment and the people around you, and it can be tough for kids. It's tough for adults to adapt. Let's be honest. I think it can be especially tough for young kids to adapt to, and I think there's some benefit to having some of that consistency in their lives. So obviously, it's not always the case for everybody, but I think by and large, I think a little bit of commitment is not necessarily a bad thing.
How important is it for Indiana basketball to have solid success this season because of they've pretty much gone all in on the portal, have all these players come in. They look to be in great position. And, there was a lot of grief given to Mike Woodson over the lack of a proper roster cohesiveness prior to this. But now that kind of seems to be put in the rearview mirror. But also the importance to succeed with that team seems to be it's up there pretty high right now.
No, and I think I think everyone is right. I think everyone was right to be disappointed in the lack of structure, even, but especially success with this current team. And I'll die on that hill. I think given the resources invested, you should have a better product than what Indiana has seen by and large over the last 2+ decades. I don't think that's unfair. At the same time, I don't think folks are wrong to feel good about where Indiana currently is in light of that history last season or the season past. I think Indiana has shown some very clear and concrete signs that they've been able to adapt to this new environment and leverage the resources. But I think it would be just as reasonable, assuming that Indiana fails to make the tournament again, that folks would be justifiably upset to the point that perhaps action is now required going forward as far as making some changes to get on a more successful track. I think all those things can be true at the same time. And make no mistake, this is not easy. This is not, it's not always necessarily fair. I didn't think it was fair last year to expect Scott Dolson or the trustees or whoever the decision makers are to throw Woody out the door after one disappointing season, having made the tournament 2 years prior. I think that would have been short-sighted. Would I feel the same about it, if we were in a similar situation this time next year? Probably not. Given the continued resources that they continue to pour into the program, I think at some point it's fair to expect results commensurate with the investment. And that's certainly not it's easy to say, it's not necessarily easy to do. Again, look at Kentucky's, look at Duke for that matter. Programs even that go far in the tournament, it's okay to say they still didn't meet their expectations, because if you claim to be a blue blood program, you should have the right to expect blue blood results, and that's conference championships, that's Final Fours, that's hardware. That's the tangible evidence of success. I think for Indiana, do we get a national championship this year? I wouldn't be mad about it, but I'm not necessarily going to put a wager on it. That said, should they be soundly in the tournament? Absolutely. Should they expect that we can find somewhere in between, though, is probably where the reality is going to be. And I think it's important that everybody, keep a clear and objective head about it. And, let's look for tangible signs of growth and development and improvement. Things don't change overnight, although they can change a whole lot quicker now in this portal era. And I think it's time to put up or shut up for Indiana. I fully expect Indiana football to be better. I don't think, I don't think we're having the same conversation about the football and the basketball coach this time next year, because that wouldn't be reasonable to expect Coach Sig to rebuild Rome overnight. But you certainly want to see steps. You want to see progress. You want to see growth and development. So I think that's only fair. I think the expectation should be a little higher for Mike Woodson this year. And I think that's totally a Hoosier thing to do. We can fight it out all the way about what that looks like. But let's just get better and let's get some wins, man.
Yeah, and football is something that we haven't talked a lot about. We'll wait to do that another time, but that is something that the roster continues to build on, and the anticipation. I think most people are looking towards a fun year in football, which, boy, slap me the last time you heard me say that.
I'm looking forward to 8 home games. I'd
Yeah.
certainly love to see some wins during that time. I think that's going to be absolutely electric, though, to get 2 full months of football weekends here in Bloomington. That should make for one heck of a fall season here in town.
8 home games and one at the Rose Bowl.
We made it, baby. Hoosiers in the Rose Bowl. Who'd have thunk it?
There you go. Crotty Hoosier, thank you so much.
We'll catch you next week. Be safe out there, y'all.
Appreciate you. Chronic Hoosier brought to you by Andy Moore Honda and Boost Fundraiser. Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all, whether it's sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, or community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com. Be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right, we'll have about 9 minutes to wrap things up when we come back.
All right, I like it. Well, all right. It drives me crazy to know about stuff and then be asked to hold it and then to see it come out otherwise, like the Pat Knight stuff. I knew about that yesterday. Gee whiz. Dun, 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 dun.
All right, here we go.
Stop Shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you as always. Plenty of things going on as far as basketball on the Indiana side. A 2025 forward, Nate Ament, is planning a visit to Indiana after Indiana hit the transfer portal hard in the offseason, and they have also got their eyes on plenty of the in-state 2025 players from Indiana Elite and others. The Hoosiers are looking to set up a visit with the 2025 star forward Nate Ament, and that's per Rivals national analyst Rob Cassidy. He was offered by Indiana last fall and has remained a top target for the Hoosiers in this 2025 recruiting cycle. 6'7", 200 pounds. He's a top 15 prospect, versatile wing, coveted by many top programs around the country, like Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, and many others have been recruiting him. So he expects to take a visit to Indiana, says he hasn't set anything in stone yet, but he's going to be going to Indiana soon. I'm also going to go back to Virginia, Ament told Cassidy this past Saturday. With Indiana, their head coach used to be a big coach in the NBA and coached big-time NBA guys. They want to keep developing me as a versatile player that would help improve my game. Of course, that was at the 3SSB Adidas circuit. I believe that was down in Birmingham. And he played, who's he play for? I just saw it. Because I believe he played against Indiana Elite in a losing effort over the weekend. But he's the 14th ranked forward in under Rivals. So you got that going for you, which is nice. On the football side of things, you got a UMass transfer linebacker committed to Indiana, and Maryland lands Maryland quarterback lands an Indiana offer. So football staying very, very busy on that side of things as well. Just a little more quiet as we're in this time of year. Baseball, baby. We have not talked at all about baseball yet. It's relatively early, but it's up and running. I mean, they're 35 games in or less than 35 games in. The Orioles leading over in the East of the American League. Baltimore in front of New York, Boston, Tampa Bay, and Toronto. The Central Division. Wow, Cleveland with a sparkling 23-12 record. They're plus 44. That's the second. Yeah, that's the second highest differential in the American League. They lead the Twins, the Royals, Tigers. Oh, man. Kyle Dendrip's poor Tigers there, but nothing worse than Rick Bozic's Chicago White Sox, 8-27. Holy crap. Is that the worst record? Yeah, close to the Colorado Rockies as the worst record in all of baseball. Woo! That's ugly. Ugly. Texas leading in the West of the American League. Over in the National League East, the Phillies, Kyle Schwarber, they're at the top of the standings, 25-11, right in front of Zach Osterman's Atlanta Braves. That's odd not to see the Braves in first place. And then it just becomes a mediocre affair from there down. The Mets, they're a game under 500 already. Not good for Kevin Brockway and the Mets fans. In the Central Division, the Brewers once again on top of things at 20-14. Chicago right behind them. And then Cincinnati. They have the Reds are 2 games under 500. got to get it going. And then, of course, another game and a half back, the St. Louis Cardinals. What in the hell happened to the Cardinals? The Dodgers leading things over in the West at 24-13. Padres are 500. So things not looking good over in the National League West. Baseball, a little odd. Dezon Hall, he's a 2026 recruit from Indianapolis Pike. He had a good debut weekend in AAU action. He scored in double figures in both games against Dream Vision and against Austin Rivers. 14 and 15 points. Total of 9 rebounds combined in both games. He had a total of 9 assists in both games, 5 steals in those. So good outing for Dezon. So it's got all kinds of stuff going on, man. And I'm sure that all of you, if you're parents, you've got travel ball going of different kinds, whether it's baseball, soccer, softball. Man, hockey's, and that's right. I was watching part of that game last night. Who ended up winning that? The Bruins were up. Boston was up 3-1 the last I saw over the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that would be what, the 2-0, put them at 2-0. I think they won the first game in OT. It's crazy. All kinds of stuff going on. So it's busy. It's going to stay that way. We've got the PGA coming up the month of May in Louisville, down in Louisville. We'll try to do some stuff for that as well. Man, gee whiz. It's never going to slow down, John Boy.
Yeah, I mean, sports are year round. I mean, you do have a lull in terms of what people come to this show normally for, but, I mean, it never ends. You're right.
Well, we try to bring it all to you. So just jump in there with us and go with it. You got to get your sports from somewhere, and we can talk about whatever. But appreciate everybody being here today, especially Mike DeCourcy, Chronic Hoosier. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you all. Without you, we have no reason to be here. John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines, and each and every one of our sponsors. Make sure you support those who support us, like great places like Reynolds Family Dentistry down in Sellersburg. Stop by and see our good friend Dr. J, or Bubba's 33 in Clarksville if you're down that way as well. We're going to be back tomorrow to do it all again. Looking forward to it. Stay safe today out of the rain, by the way. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.